Joining me to talk about this creature feature is the mind behind it and the front woman changing the meaning behind Mad Scientist. I'm honored to be able to sit down with the both of you to talk, but I have a feeling some of my listeners may have never heard of you unless they're a fan of Doc McStuffins or the Equalizer series. So, Bomani, Leia, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Bomani Story, writer director, The Angry Black Girl and a Monster.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
hi, I'm Laya DeLeon Hayes. I am an actress. I star as Vicaria in The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster. And I was Doc McStuffins and am on Equalizer.
Yes, you were, and you changed so many lives. Let me tell you something. So I know you all are probably very busy, especially with your promos going on and just starting. But if you do have any downtime, what are you currently reading or watching?
Ooh, that's a good one. Right now I just finished Lord of the Flies for the first time, which was awesome.
The
Yeah,
first time too.
yeah. So I really enjoyed that. And as far as what I'm watching, I mean, the last thing I watched, I mean, I was at a couple festivals, so I was watching a couple of things. I watched Birth, Rebirth, and I rewatched Julia Ducournau's two movies like Raw and Titan. I rewatched those before I went on the festival run, but yeah.
All right, and Leia.
Yes. Um, I okay, reading. Last thing I read was I finished it like last month was On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, I think that's how you say his last name.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to get into poetry. If anybody has poetry recs, let me know. But I just bought two poetry books. One by Dorothy Parker, and I bought The Prophet. I'm really trying to get into that. But and then things that I watched literally last night, I watched Polite Society. And I went to
Oh, I've heard that's good.
it was
I peeped that.
so good. I love
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun
Yeah.
time with like a group. It was a good, fun like movie to see with a big group of friends. So I loved it.
I'll have to take that recommendation. Before we get into any horror talk, which is my favorite kind of talk, we do have to address the elephant in the room. So, Leia, you're working alongside one person who has paved the way for so many Black women in the industry. What is your relationship like with your co-star, Queen Latifah?
Oh my goodness. I love Queen. I love Queen so
Yeah.
much. Like you said, it's kind of crazy to be able to work with her and also be able to bond with her because like for so many people who are in the industry, she's done so much for us, especially for young Black women, and not just in acting or theater, whatever, but like rap music, especially. um, and I mean, I was even looking at a photo from when I was 8 and I went to Hollywood for the first time. Me and my family traveled for spring break, and I took a picture with her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And so like I manifested it,
You
but
manifested that.
exactly.
Yeah.
But she's incredible. She's the coolest, and it's been really nice to be able to get to know her more so in the last 2 seasons because in the first season it was during the pandemic. So with the mask coming off, it really does feel like me, her, and Lorraine are all family members. And I learned so much from just watching her and having conversations with her. One thing about her is she will give you a good music recommendation. She listens to
I
everything.
believe it.
So my playlist has gotten better, and also my knowledge of acting has gotten better, obviously, too. So I love Queen.
That's amazing. I love that for you. I couldn't even imagine having someone in a position like a mentor role and it being Queen Latifah. Wow.
You know, we don't get that very often. And everybody on Equalizer, even down to our showrunners, it's a Black show, and so they all kind of lead their hand out and offer guidance, which is so very appreciated.
And that's a perfect way to start talking about what we're going to talk about because if there's one thing I love more, it's Black horror. And we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Black horror and everything. So now you have taken the leap into a different genre, my favorite, But Bomani, you're no stranger to it. So to your memory, what was your first encounter with horror?
Really was my sister's kind of putting this weird shit on in front of me when I was a kid, like and just traumatizing me, like Tales from the Hood kind of traumatized us all as a young kid, it's like it was just like my hot take on Tales from the Hood is everything that's like I would like 97% of any black horror that comes out is going to be linked to Tales from the Hood for the next like 10, 15 years. And then after that, it'll be whatever, it's like, but right now, like anything, but Tales from the Hood, Leprechaun, Child's Play, Nightmare on Elm Street. Those were like really my first kind of introductions into horror. Like those are like kind of like the big ones. Tales from the Crypt was also something that was going on. And as a kid, like Goosebumps is gonna find its way into like I was like into my like that was there too. But The Ring was probably the really crazy one that happened that I saw. Like that was like, oh yeah. The Omen, like just as a kid, these were like a bunch of ones that were kind of circling and doing weird stuff to me and scaring me, keeping me up at night,
All the ones that infiltrated your young mind.
Yeah.
Now, Leah, were you a horror person before you got onto this project?
I wasn't.
Oh,
too much. I know I'm learning so much just from like listening to the movies that Bomani watched when he was younger, and also like a lot of the people who interviewed us are such big horror fans like yourself. So I'm definitely learning much more. My only like recollection of going to the movies or like being traumatized when I was younger was the first time I saw Insidious. I was 9, and there was that like old lady in it, and she absolutely horrified me. And I don't know if Twilight is horror, but there was a really scary scene.
Twilight is not horror, but it is cinema. It is the highest cinema there is.
And there's scary parts in Twilight. Like I think she gave birth. I'm so sorry if this is TMI, but like it scarred me. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And also I think it came out when I was 12. And me and my family, we went to the theater like 3 times to see it, but I would still wake up like in the middle of the night thinking to myself, like, thank God I'm not in Derry. Thank God I'm not in Derry.
3 times is a lot to go to a movie that's traumatizing you.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a weird fascination. I ended up watching the like 1990s It shortly afterwards, and I couldn't finish that. That really scared me.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's crazy that you said the old lady is what scared you in Insidious when you had that red face thing.
Yeah.
The way that whoa, that was a lot.
It says so much about me. Traumatized.
I respect it though. There's a difference in enjoying horror as a viewer and enjoying it as a storyteller as well. So what is it about horror that stuck out to you, Bomani, and why did you choose this genre specifically to tell this story?
Really, it was like when I originally read the book, Frankenstein, I enjoyed the anxiety that it gave me. And I also enjoyed the thematics of the story. I thought it's taken big swings at a lot of big questions, and I just like felt like a lot of those questions that were being posed in that book really, I identified with for a lot of different reasons, those elements were really what kind of attracted me. And also just like the horror of, because when you read the literature, like, yes, you have this weird reanimated being walking around, but it's really the drama he's causing from the aftermath of what he's leaving that's very terrifying. There's even like a book, there's even a part in the book where Victor gets blamed for a murder that, which, I guess is in the movie, but like he gets blamed for a murder and get like wrongfully imprisoned because of something the monster did, right? No, it's terrifying. So like it was a mixture of all those things, and then like the drama of it, and I was just really attracted to all those elements, and so I really wanted to try to capture those in a contemporary lens.
especially when people take the story of Frankenstein, I feel like they always cut it off at a specific point. They don't always show the full scope of it, because I had to read it for a college class. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that it went this, like this in depth and this far. And so I feel like the Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, I feel like it takes little pieces of that story to show that full scope without, making it 3 hours long. As we were talking about before, Laya, I saw your South by Southwest interview where you said you were hesitant about being in a horror project. So could you elaborate more on why and how you decided to take on this one specifically?
Yeah, I don't know if I remember saying I was hesitant to take on horror. If anything, that was something I really wanted to explore. Especially with more, mature roles, and like doing film has really been one of my goals. I saw like an interview or something where one of these actors was like, horror is one of the genres where you're able to just like fully let go and like scream and run around and cry, do all this stuff, and it's just like fulfilling to be able to do that. And I felt like it was one of the biggest genres that could challenge me, especially around this time last year when we started filming. So I was very excited, and I was wanting to do different genres, and horror was one of them. I think more so there was a lot of excitement with this project, but also hesitance when it came to Angry Black Girl, just because I'd never led a project before, led a film. I mean, voiceover and TV is very different from something like this, and especially it being quite indie, it was all very new to me. So there was a bit of, I would say, like nervous energy to take on the role. But other than that, I was really excited to do horror.
And I'm excited to talk about your participation and your performance, because I have some questions for you. For the longest time, horror has been rampant with Black characters and Black stories. Maybe that's why I clung on to it the way I did. Like you were saying, Bomani, Leprechaun in the Hood, while problematic, was my Coco Melon when I was a kid. and these stories, they weren't always produced by us, though, and that's why movies like Leprechaun in the Hood are problematic. But why do you think it's important for these movies to be produced by us?
For me personally, I think it's like we just have the ear to the street. You know what I mean? No one understands our culture better than us. You know what I mean? And we're constantly, and our culture is constantly expanding and building on itself, and things of that nature. And I think by having us behind the camera and in front of it, it allows us to really zero in on those, like the authenticity of it, and not just stay stagnant. Because I feel like that's something that happened where, stereotypical roles would happen. And then that's all that, would get, because it's like, well, when someone else who's not a part of the culture or doesn't have respect for the culture or love the culture, it's just like, you're just going to keep it where it's at. Whereas, you know what I mean, someone like us, it's like we're gonna move and expand, at least, try, it's like, and do things like that, So for me, that's, one element, or angle to it. And sometimes there are movies that I won't name, but I'll watch that, I like, but I'm like, I could tell one of us didn't make this just because there's like little details. There's like one movie I was watching, and I was just like, the way they were like having people braid the hair and stuff like that and doing the hair.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I was just like, this sounds like y'all hella confused. Like,
Laya, you talked about how Equalizer has mostly Black hands on it. And so it has to feel very empowering, and you have to feel like you're heard and seen in those kinds of environments.
Oh my gosh, completely. Especially, growing up and just being a part of this industry, like you go to auditions and you're the only Black girl in the room. And even they'll do open ethnicities all the time. That'll be the call, and it's primarily Caucasian people, and you're the only one in there. And like Bomani was saying, like it's just so important for our authentic voice to be seen and heard. I feel like with my career and what I want to do for the rest of it is just be a part of projects that are for us and by us. One, because the experience is so different. I mean, I've had crazy experiences with my hair where they would try to straighten it or put heat onto it. There's things like that that I did not feel on Angry Black Girl, and we certainly don't feel on Equalizer either. But there's a sort of comfort and a sort of safety that I feel like you can only feel when you're around, your people. And I feel like it makes the product better. And then on top of that, movies and TV shows, they have a way of forming our minds and forming other people's perceptions of us. And it's only right, especially in this day and age, because for so long we have not been able to be in the rooms where we're able to make those types of decisions of what's true and what's right and what's authentic, that that relates and translates on screen. In a way, it can change people's minds. It can change the way that people treat others. So I think it's more important than ever with social media, with all of it, that our voices and the movies that we put out are for us.
Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that I noticed when I was watching the movie. Those parts were so clean in your hair. That scalp was oiled up. I was obsessed with all of the hairstyles. Wow.
I will tell a little.
Renisha.
No, Renisha, like shout out Renisha. Shout out Renisha, because truly, I mean this from the deepest like part of my heart. Like I have never been on any project where my hair was laid every single day. Like she cared so much about how it looked, but also I was a little scared. Like I get very particular with how my braids are done. She looked at me every time. I was like, girl, I got it. Girl, don't worry. I got it. And that goes such a long way when you've been in certain types of predicaments and situations where like it's not even an option, or people don't know how to do your hair, make it look good. Having that there, especially when you want to focus on other things as like your character, knowing that like your hair and makeup is set, it just goes such a long way. So shout out Renisha.
Yeah. And I remember seeing stories about certain models or actresses who would have to come on set with their hair already done because they didn't have Black hairdressers there to help them with it or to do it for them. So I love that you have that experience, and that hopefully it's not the last time that happens to you or any other Black actress on the scene right now. I always love to hear everyone's reasonings for loving horror, Bomani, or how horror has translated for you, Laya. The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster is a film that's intentional and symbolic in its communication with the audience, meaning that the real story you're trying to tell isn't very blatant. Every character interacts with the themes of racial and wealth inequality and their effects. You get the chance to understand how everyone copes with it differently. Some choose to hold on to their dream in hopes of making it out. Some lose their dreams and faith and turn to more violent or unhealthy ways of making a living. But in the end, it all links together to help the audience better understand the bigger picture. This takes an immense amount of trust in your audience. And I know, Bomani, when you were answering questions at the film festival that I was at, you wouldn't even answer certain questions because you trusted the audience that much. So can you elaborate on the importance of allowing them to connect the dots for themselves?
Leia's laughing because I'll be stopping her from answering.
Leia, don't answer that. Leia, don't answer that.
I'll be blocking. Nah, I mean, like, I think, well, for one, I think Frankenstein's a story that works on its thematics pretty heavily. So I think, doing any kind of hand holding is just gonna it's just gonna be like, it's too much. It's just gonna be too much. It's just like it's already very loud with everything that it's saying. It's like God and man, and it's like it's crazy. So for me, I just I was like, I'll put these themes in here, but it's like there's no point in really trying to hold anyone's hand through this, because they're all, I feel like they're all personally laid there. And on top of that, I just believe that the story's no longer mine anymore once it's out there, and an audience's relationship with it and what they bring from it and what they take from it, whether it's negative or positive, how they feel, is their relationship with the story, and I treasure that. It's like I treasure that, because either way, no matter what way you look at it, whether you like it or dislike it, is going to inform how you seek and watch movies in the future and things of that nature, right? I just feel like an important part of watching cinema. So yeah, I try to trust my audience with a lot of things, and then other times I'm just like, well, it's Frankenstein, so you're gonna get these themes, baby.
Yeah, and it's a movie that has so many emotions in it. I think I told you I was feeling happy, I was feeling sad, mad, scared. It had everything in there. But I can't even imagine the kind of emotions that you had to conjure up, Laya, in order to give such a powerful performance. This is your first horror project, but it's not your first role outside of the Disney Nick sphere of TV. So how has that transition been for you to more mature roles, especially when the subject matter gets a little bit deeper?
It's been, well, in general, it's been exhilarating. It's been really exciting. I think if you really love what you do, I mean, there's so many people who start off really young, as I did. And when I first got out here, it felt like Disney and Nickelodeon were kind of the only things that were like an option at the time. And then to be a young Black girl, you had to be extremely, extremely lucky to get something very good, and to get something that you could lead in. And then people hit an age where they fall off, or they don't love it as much anymore, or things get more challenging. And I felt as I got older, it was like I was yearning for more challenge. And now starting to get like my first little taste of it has just been extremely exciting. And especially on Angry Black Girl, it was very freeing, and in a lot of ways, like liberating to be a part of this experience, and to do it with Bomani. I felt like I was challenged in ways that I hadn't been challenged before as an actor, but especially as a person. And you always like prep, obviously, before you go into any role or any type of project. But this, because we had Frankenstein, like we had like source material, but it was really nice to be able to collaborate with Bomani, and then to be able to collaborate with the other actors. Again, these were all things that I yearned for and wanted. And Angry Black Girl, this experience was the project that I was able to fully like indulge in and challenge myself while doing so. If anything, it was and has been a ball, and it's just showing me what type of projects I want to do in the future, and also the kind of artist that I want to be and become.
Vicarious story deals with some heavy topics. So first, I want to make sure you took care of yourself. The kind of self-care you had to do every night after screaming your lungs out and thinking like a mad scientist.
There was so much throat coat and so much water. I almost, and Bomani knows, like a lot of us almost died of like heat exhaustion.
Oh no.
But the thing is like, when you're devoted to like the story, and we have such an amazing cast, such an amazing crew, everyone showed up, and we're ready no matter what challenges like we had to face. It didn't really mean as much to us as making the story as authentic and real, but also as powerful as it needed to be. I think we all took that with us, and we felt not pressure in any type of way, but we just wanted to make it right. And I feel like that's why people are able to resonate with it, because Bomani was able to bring us all kind of together to make something great.
BAFTA winning, actors, it's like, all right, yeah, BAFTA winning, right here is when, set the stage, she set the, the tone for everything while we was out there, so.
Well, and listeners, this shoot took 20 days, 22 days?
so quick.
Yeah, it was about 20 days. And I think we lost like a day and a half or two from lightning storms and shit. Like, yeah, it was
So y'all need your kudos. Y'all need it no matter what. But this is one reason why I really do love Black horror, is because even the campiest horror movies can have some of the deepest meanings. But something that Black horror fans often criticize when it comes to cinema and Black horror is the use of trauma for plot progression and story development. But I noticed that with this narrative, whilst you use some emotional experiences that Black people often can relate to, there's also a payoff to each one that makes it worth the watch. So was this something that you considered as you were writing this story and directing it as well?
Absolutely not. No.
I was like, oh, okay.
No, it was, it is something that that you have to think about when because horror, like when you're dealing with horror in general, I just feel like you're kind of dealing with negative experiences, right? Or feelings, emotions, I should say, so it's like finding a way to output those in some shape or form. So I always recognized it as a delicate dance that needed to be dealt with, it's like executed a certain way. Hopefully I succeeded in that, but it was definitely on my mind as doing it. And one of the things I was kind of thinking about in order to combat that, but also, like think about it, was, one of my biggest influences is Tupac, and Nas and artists like that, because one of the things Tupac said in one of his interviews was like, I think they asked him what's the mark of a good rap artist or whatever, and he was just like, well, you can't. He's like, you have to talk about the pain too. You can't talk about just glorifying like murder and all this other shit and then not talk about the pain and the the sadness that comes with that. And and you get that in his songs like Life Goes On, it's like, and things of that nature. So for me, while looking at this, I was like, when I take from them, I'm just like, all right, you kind of have to try to show a scope, and to me, like the elements of this movie that I want to use is showing the the beauty of these kids playing in the street with their water guns, or even with Vicaria, like even though she's doing weird shit, but it's like, this is her passion. It's like when she's operating on her brother, it's like, as gruesome as that might be, it's like she still has a beautiful mind. And like to actually be able to cure death, and bring someone back to life, as horrid as that sounds, it's also like, if that happened today, it would be fucking groundbreaking. It's like, and that's a beautiful thing. I just wanted to treat certain things like that, and show like the scope of that and the dimensions of that, because I don't feel like burying your head in the sand and like looking away from it is the appropriate answer if we're gonna have these conversations. To me, it's like, you have to bring it up. It's like, and you also need to do something else as well.
I think your cinematographer and her choice of lens helped in this as well, because that was absolutely beautiful.
Daphne Quinn. Shout out to Daphne too.
Lens, Japanese lens.
Yeah, the Japanese lenses.
But I noticed too, there were small things like which I don't want to give too much away, but like in instances of police brutality, you didn't show that. You didn't see that. You just kind of saw the aftermath of it. And there were also some small nudges to victims of police brutality as well. Or maybe that was just me making connections, digging a little too deep, because I often do. But this is one of the most important reasons why I advocate for difficult stories such as this one to be told from someone a part of that community or with that life experience. Several well-intentioned directors have produced movies dealing with the same subject matter, but they just aren't mindful of the community that it's representing, which has resulted in harmful archetypes that we're still trying to fight today. To be a Black woman in horror, Laya, is powerful in itself, but your character is smart and resourceful for reasons personal to her and not solely for the white protagonist, which is a pattern in older horror. So why was this character important to you, and how did you make her personal to you?
Well, one, like you said, like you don't really see characters like this like very often often, especially again, like in this age range, with maturing and wanting different types of roles, you just don't get stories like this, that when you read the script, you're completely engaged and you are caught off guard or surprised, or again, feeling a big array of emotions. And Vicaria, what really drew me to this project was her. There were moments where I couldn't stop thinking of her, and I couldn't stop writing about her and just wanting to figure out why her brain operated the way that it did and why she wanted to cure death. There were so many questions that I asked Bomani. Like, there was a true fascination with her and why she was so obsessed with curing death. It's such a like bold statement. Death is a disease, and I believe I can cure it. And to take that was, again, a challenge, but also just extremely fascinating. So I feel like also with Vicaria and with characters like her, with any character in this movie, I was able to see myself within. And even though maybe our experiences aren't the same, or the way that we grew up aren't the same, I feel like as a Black person, we can all relate to the feeling of just being Black in America, being Black in our society. And I feel like I'm able to see like my aunts and my uncles and my nieces and my nephews all within these characters. And on top of that, like what also interested me was working with Bomani, the first time director as well. So Black horror character Vicaria, you just don't get projects like this very often. And I'm constantly yearning to be challenged, and I'm constantly yearning for just something fresh and new. And I had never read or done anything like this before.
And it's nice to see the story of Frankenstein translated for the Black community, because I think other adaptations of Frankenstein have been for the queer community, or just, recent adaptations just to modern it up a little bit. So it's really nice to see it translated the way that it is, and for the circumstances that it is as well. In a few other interviews, Bomani, you talk about how you love the takeaways of movies like Jaws. So what do you hope that audiences walk out of the theater with once they watch your film?
They have a fucked up time.
And they will. I did.
Yeah, it's like you get a little bit grossed out, and honestly, it's like I like introducing a palette. I like trying to achieve giving a palette to the audience, whether that's humor, fear, laughing, it's like crying, it's just like drama. Like I like movies that give you all those things, and because I feel like being entertained is enraptured in all those things, catharsis and, something to think about. Like, I think all those things are crucial to an experience. At least for me, it's like I would like to try to, or hope that they walk away from this movie with that, and a little bit of an expansion of what horror is, because I feel like a lot of people have a very small scope of what it means to be a horror movie, and I think horror is a very wide spectrum, like from something as small as this conversation is making me very uncomfortable, all the way down to this monster is living under my bed and I don't want to look under the bed. You know what I mean? It's just like there's a very wide parameter, and I'm hoping that this can open up the conversation of what horror can be, and it's just like can push the needle a little bit more, so people have a little bit more wider parameter of what they're willing to accept for horror.
I mean, agreeing with what Bomani said, I hope they go into the theater without any expectations, and they go in not knowing like what this is going to be at all. And like Bomani said, just they feel a bunch of emotions, and it takes them on a roller coaster ride. And then by the end of it, I hope that they can look inward. I'll say that much. And I also love one of your interview questions that you had just a couple minutes ago was something so specific and something that only you noticed when you were talking about police brutality. I hope that they can come out with maybe new ideas or reasons why Bomani chose to do this, or I chose to do that. I hope that they question things in the movie as well, things that might never be answered, but I hope that they do question.
It's something that I said when I like reviewed the movie on TikTok, was that I think it's really important to go into any movie with an open mind, really, because I think if you go in there expecting something and you come out something different, then you could be disappointed. And I think that is the opposite of what anyone should feel when watching this movie, because I absolutely love the moments that I laughed in the movie right before I felt horrified. And there's one moment where like there's beating on the door and it's like, he's here, and you don't know what to expect, and the real horror behind the door. Whoa. Yeah, I think you did a great job with this movie. I'm really excited for people to see it. I think the title in itself is going to catch everyone off guard. I mean, it already has people talking in my TikTok comments. Some people love it, some people don't like it, but I'm like, either way, you should watch it. So what other genres are you hoping to get into, Laya? Is this your first and only horror, or are you hoping to do more horror after this?
Oh my gosh, I want to do much more horror after this. This was like one of the most fun experiences I've ever had. I mean, Bomani like loves gore and like blood. So just like seeing him enjoy it, that was also very fun. But personally, I just watched, I hope I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right. Please, someone help me. But I think it's Chevalier. It's in theaters right now.
Yeah.
It was just so cool to see like Black people in period pieces, like with the corsets and like he has the powdered wig on, but he's like playing violin with Mozart. And his story is phenomenal. But all that leading to say, I would love to like do some period piece that's just like Black people in the 1700s, but like fantasy.
We need you on screen for that. That's one reason I loved Bridgerton, although sometimes I don't really like the story. I just love seeing Black people and other people of color in like a period piece, because you don't get it very often.
You don't, like, I want to see us in the pretty dresses with our little Pride and Prejudice moment, and we meet our Mr. Darcy. Like, I don't think that's so hard.
I got something for you, Lay. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? I got something for you.
Well, then you do that.
Right? I got you. You know, for me, you know, I think just for me, it's like I'm for all of that. You know, my whole mantra is just the aggressive expansion of Black cinema within genre. You know, so like, and I'm a lover of genre. I love sci-fi. I love horror. I love fantasy. You know, one of my favorite genres is that old school noir with the fedoras and the smoking. You know what I mean? Like, I hope throughout my career that I'm able to touch all these within Black cinema. You know, and do all these. I love westerns too, and like I wanna hit all those. You know, it's like my next script, you know, is fantasy shit. So like it's you know what I mean? Yeah, we gonna be hitting the streets with everything. So I really hope to be able to, like, I don't see horror. I know some people used to use horror as like a jumping off point and they never come back. I don't see that for me because I'm a big lover of horror. But yeah, you know, so you was peeping our interviews. I peeped one of yours, man. I saw, you know, Black Christmas and Raw within your top 5. I respect that, you know? I respect that, and I hope you saw the reference to Black Christmas in this movie. You know, it's like, so I see you. You know?
Literally, I see you. If I remember correctly, you said your next project is gonna be like Lord of the Rings meets Juice. Can we talk about it real quick?
That's the first time I'm hearing that. But what?
Were those trade secrets that I just released?
Nah, man. You know, it's like that's what it is. I mean, you know, it's just like these little blurs find Gandalf's staff. Hilarity ensues. That's all I can give you. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be in the streets soon. You know, so. Open market.
Right. I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I love the concept.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back real quick because Leia, you were talking about how Bomani loves gore. Now, were you the one sewing up the skin in the movie?
Me?
Yeah, were you
Yes,
sewing?
I was. Yes, I
And
was.
how was that as someone who doesn't like it?
Now we did all of the gory lab stuff in one day. So it was just like one thing after the other. Like, Leia, hold this head. Leia, I want you to like put his eyeball in. Hey, stitch this part of his flesh. So I I think before that day I was getting through it. Like there were moments where Edam, who plays Chris, he would be in like the full getup and I would be like kind of terrified, but not too much. I was still feeling like I could stay in character. I was all good. And then we got to that day where it was just blood and gore on I think the last week. And I had to pinch myself every single time, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can take this anymore.
Yeah. And he was truly terrifying. I love the reveal of his face because it's very, you don't see it right off the bat. It comes up when you're not expecting it. And I was a little shaken up. I mean, you did a great sewing job. So
oh my gosh, as long as the sewing job was good, that's all that matters.
Yeah, you did great.
I wanted to actually scream after each take. I'm kidding.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad I got to talk to you all. And I'm so happy to have this movie coming out soon. Now, where can the listeners find it once it is out?
June 9th in theaters.
Woo!
June 9th in theaters, baby. You know, so be on the lookout for the theaters.
Yeah.
Right.
Show up and show out. Let them know.
Hot summer.
It's gonna be a hot summer. You know, it's gonna be a hot.
No, this is gonna be a hot summer. We got this movie, then we got The Blackening. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna know what to do.
Yeah. June belongs to us.
Yeah. I know that's right.